Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to this session. Today is going to be a very interesting session where we're going to talk about the premier most V school in India, which is ISB, the best V school in India where people want to go. And we are going to take inputs from someone who has actually gotten into an ISB round three application, which is supposed to be very, very competitive. Most consultants say that you should not even apply in higher three because most of the students have been taken in. And she has made it possible with a GMAT score of 680, which is like 20, 30 points below the average GMAT score of ISB, but and that too in round three. So we're going to talk with Kanika directly, who has converted ISB, and understand what are the key aspects that ISB looks at, because GMAT score is just a small element. At the end of the day, that's not what defines you. And again, just because your score is 20, 30 points less than average doesn't mean your score is low as well. So we'll talk about the same things from Kanika. So a warm welcome to all of you. If you have any questions during the session, please feel free to ask us. This is a live interview for the sake of you guys asking the questions from Kanika. So Kanika, let's start with your introduction and tell us how does it feel to kind of convert your dream B school in round three.
So, hi everyone. I am Kanika. I am a chartered accountant by profession. So, I have been now I've qualified in 2020. So, I think now was the time that I started thinking about what else I need to do for furthering my career and something how
Mhm.
to make it more in line with my aspirations and my goals for the future. And that's how, of course, the idea of the MBA crossed my mind. And of course, like Piyush has said, ISB is one of the most, if not the most premier institution that anybody could seek to get their MBA from in India. So it was definitely a dream school. If truth be told, it was the only school that I applied to right now, and the only school that I truly wanted to get my MBA from. So how it happened is that actually I was thinking about getting the MBA, and I was indifferent between starting it in 2023 and 2024. So I was like 2022 just went all of that went in thinking, okay, I have to do it. Let's start preparing for the GMAT somewhat, and then your the deadlines of various rounds started approaching. So when I spoke to a lot of people, they were of the opinion that you wouldn't lose really anything if you apply this year as well, right? So why do you want to
Mhm.
spend another year when you're confident that you want to get an MBA? Why don't you just apply this year? So that advice I took rather seriously, and then I think I would say September onwards, I would say I started putting in the effort, the
Okay.
focused effort for my GMAT. So now September is
Okay.
once where
Mhm.
one round deadline is already gone. So at best, even
Right.
if you do your best effort, you can be looking at round two. So I was, and also
Correct.
September, October was colliding with what is a busy season in the line of work that I work in. So again, there was not a lot of time
Mhm.
available for studying. Other than the weekends, I would say nothing because the work days would be
Mhm.
very long, right? So I remember I gave one GMAT attempt in November, and I thought that hey, if I get a good score in this
Okay.
attempt and only, I think there was still 14 days left between that attempt and the round two deadline. So I'll maybe make an application and then send it in round two only. Why I'm saying this is because still that inhibition in my mind was there of applying in round three. That's because that's just
Mhm.
what you get from people when you speak to them, that no, R3 is extremely competitive and it's always a better idea to
Mhm.
apply in
Mhm.
round one next year than for your
Round two.
application to go in round three, because they just say that organically only your chances will somehow be reduced. The one thing
Mhm.
that I mentioned here is that even though all of that like noise is there, that everyone says no, R3 your chances get affected, I will it's good time to reinstate that the school never really says that, right? You go to ISB's website,
Mhm.
ISB, they just say that applying in any round will not affect your chances of getting affected. So I did have that in the back of my mind, in spite of all the negative sort of
Noise around.
reviews
Mhm.
that you get there for applying in round three. But then how I got my GMAT, that score was not satisfying in any round, I would say. So I thought that, no, this, of course, I have to definitely maybe 40 days more or 45 days more and give another attempt. So again, for 45 days more, I studied, and GMATWhiz only is the portal that I was using, and my mentor there, he fine tuned my weak points
Mhm.
and told me that this is where you need to do better, this is where you need to do better. And one attempt you also have a lot of insight into what really happens in the exam scenario. So on a personal level also you can work on those shortcomings when you go to the next one. So I went for the next one, and that's when I scored the 680. Now again, the 680 also, even though I wasn't really upset about it or anything. I knew it was a fair score, and that I can of course study and improve it further. But now the big question was that do I apply in round three with this 680, or actually, which was the most suggested way, was that no, you can apply in round one with this 680. That was a suggestion that was being given to me by my peers. That was a suggestion that was being given to me by uh, consultants who I was informally speaking to, some leads that you get from your friends, people who had helped them with their applications. So they were all of the opinion that yeah, 680 might be touch and go, so you should maybe consider round one only. There's no harm in applying right now, but why do you want to take the risk? That was the most common answer that I was getting. So the
Of course.
yeah, and this is when I even actually spoke to my mentor, the one who was preparing me for my GMAT, right? And he's the one who suggested that Kanika, you should speak to Piyush once, and because he's dealt with a lot of ISB applications, he'll be able to give you a great perspective as to what you should do next. And I spoke to Piyush, and Piyush actually was, it was a completely different experience talking to him, because he came with a lot of confidence, and he said that definitely it's a no-brainer that you should apply. I remember still, I remember our chat. We spoke for a good an hour and a half, and he said that no, no, you must apply. And given that your profile, like I had told him my profile in detail, how I'm a chartered accountant, and other than that, also my academic records have been fair, right, since beginning from 10th grade. Uh, and my work ex was also quite credible and of good lines that are associated with CA. So Piyush was of the opinion that you should definitely apply. I still remember he said that you will certainly get an interview call, right? Maybe that point it was too early to comment on the chances of a conversion. He said you will certainly get an interview call, so please just go ahead. And there was no looking back. Of course, I took that advice, because I think in my application I was also somewhere looking for that, for someone to say that yeah, no, it's a good score, aap karo. So then that was that. I
So you
applied,
wanted to apply
and
and you just wanted that confidence that you can actually get in with
yes, yes, right.
this application. So
Right.
that
Like
was something which
you,
was you're not getting from anywhere else at that point of time. Possible.
correct, correct. In fact, you're getting just the opposite thing from everywhere that don't, because the chances are bleak. R3 is very competitive. People who have not been accepted into their target schools in the US, they apply in R3 and they have really high GMAT scores, etc. So you'll be competing with them. So, and how do you compete with a candidate who has exactly your profile and and a better GMAT score? Those were all the inhibitions and fears that were being fed into me. So anyhow, I listened to, of course, Piyush, and then we started with the process of drafting my application. And again, with the mentor who's working on my application from GMATWhiz as well, they spend so much of time, first of all, into explaining how much weight the application carries, right? And I remember this is something Piyush said as well, that we tend to hyperfixate over the GMAT score. Maybe because that is the most easily quantifiable aspect of an application, that it's the most easy thing to say that, oh, they had a 740, they had a 750, they had a 680, maybe that's why that didn't happen. But you really, from my experience, what I would say is that you really need to look beyond that, and you need to put in the same effort while building your application as well. So the questionnaire that was shared with me, which in which I had to mention, all details and all the details of all softer skills, achievements, and how I have dealt with certain situations in my professional or maybe academic life if I have come across them, and what my aspirations are for the future, and what I think uniquely I could bring to the school should I get the opportunity to join it. So all those things and multiple conversations, I remember again with my mentor to guide me better as to, sometimes you are all out of ideas as to what you should say, or how do you best bring about a certain quality or trait that you have. And I think that's where the role of your consultant, the mentor that is guiding you through the application, it really comes into the picture. If there's someone as seasoned as the mentor I had, one conversation later with you, they will be actually able to point out that, hey, this is something you should highlight in your application, and maybe this is something you should not really bring out. So yes.
True, true, true. And just one thing, like just giving one step back. So Kanika started working on the application around mid of Jan, if I'm not wrong. Correct, Kanika? And the application of ISB was like
Correct.
10-15 days away only,
Away. Right.
right?
Right.
And even then, like people think the application there are just two essays, so they're just working on the essays directly, the essays and all. But what Kanika is telling us that the brainstorming, knowing you, knowing your own self, is much more important than knowing the application or knowing ISB. So she
Right.
put in the effort to kind of identify the other areas also. And I'm pretty sure the data dashboard that you're talking about, Kanika, which was shared by
Correct.
Shakib.
Correct.
Shakib is basically the consultant who was working with Kanika. So the data dashboard that was shared by Shakib probably contained what 30, 40 odd important aspects that she needs to look at. An ISB
Right.
application focuses on just two questions, two broad questions. But even then,
Right.
those 30, 40 questions are important because when you think about those 20, 30, 40 things, you understand how can you bring about different perspectives and what are the important aspects of your life and who are you basically? What is
Right.
a persona that needs to be placed, basically.
Correct. Correct.
Correct.
Right.
Please
That
correct me if I'm wrong with it. Just to
No, that's
summarize.
absolutely right. Because, the metrics, so to say, when you share your academic details with them, you tell them that you had this CGPA in college and you had this percentage in your CA and in your 10th and 12th grade. That is one thing, right? But to actually bring out who you are as a person, other than that, those things that are just going to go in your resume, like you said, your persona, what are the unique traits when it comes to your personality or how you contribute to your current organization, your previous organizations. Those really have to be brought out with your application. You have to make sure that nothing about your personality that is worth being spoken about on, it could be a hobby, it could be an extracurricular thing that you do, gets left out when you're writing about the application, and that it doesn't just again fix upon just one aspect or one trait that you might have. So that's really important, and that the data dashboard that you were speaking about, that really helps. Because again, when you're going to start, you could be the best, most eloquent and articulate writer in the world, but when you sit down to write that application, you will suddenly freeze and you will think, oh, but what have I been doing for the last 5 6 years? So just making sure that all those ideas are organized in one place, that really helps. That really helps.
True, true. So, what are the key aspects that ISB application, like in ISB looks at in a candidate through the application? So, what are the question prompts that were there? What are the key aspects that you think are important?
Right. So for this year's essay, I think one question is one that remains, I think, uniform across all years, which is your long-term and short-term goals, which ISB looks at by in the essay. And the other essay that we had to write about was that it was focusing on how peer learning is an important aspect of your time at ISB. So, how are you going to contribute to that idea of peer learning, and how are you going to help your peers, or what are you going to bring to your peers in ISB should you be joining their class? So, those were the essays, and of course, like I said, that you have to bring out all your personal characteristics and your softer skills, your habits as a person, what your choices have been when it comes to extracurriculars, into those essays, and pitch them as how they are going to, of course, help your peers, and how so far they have been resonating with your long term goals that you might want to do in the future. So, one is that. Other than that, of course, the very important other aspect is the letter of recommendation. Again, I think one more myth that Shakib was able to clear out for me. I think that many people are still of the opinion that the letter of recommendation, the higher in seniority the person who gives it to you, the more weight it would carry. So actually, that is not the case, right? The letter of recommendation essentially should come from the person who is working the most closely with you. They should be someone who are aware of your even the most remote of your traits, the traits that someone who's working with you every day, day in and day out, would find out that this is what they are implicitly good at, even though they might not know it, and this is one thing that they organically show initiative for, even if nobody's pushing them to. So, and that will only come from your immediate supervisor. So don't, I don't
Hmm.
think you should get into that, oh, that no, I'm going to ask my 3 level up or 4 level up boss to give my letter of recommendation. They are not going to have that visibility about who you are as a person and how you handle your work. Your immediate supervisor would. So he's the one who wrote my letter of recommendation. And of course, you should. Of course, depending on how well connected you are with them, it's a good idea to sit with them to explain to them what it is that the college is looking
Essay
for, and
requires looking for.
yeah, what it requires, which traits of yours maybe should be mentioned in the LOR, etc. Of course, you don't have a lot of visibility into exactly what is sent out in the LOR to your recommender, but to iterate to them that your high points and how how well you are with taking responsibility,
Hmm.
etc. Those are the things that should be highlighted. And yes, so far, and I mean, I don't think it can be undermined, the importance of a good letter of recommendation. That is as important a part of your application as any other. So just yes, for that, I would say that choose your recommender wisely. Don't get lured into thinking
Hmm.
that I just have to choose a senior person. Choose somebody who knows you very well. Yeah.
No, very valid point. And in fact, the number of questions that get asked, like I've filled a ISB recommendation myself for a person who worked with me in the past.
Okay.
So I've seen the kind of questions that they ask. They're very in-depth questions overall. And
Correct.
in such a case, like the data dashboard that you have worked with initially, that also helps because that has helped you kind of introspect upon things that you have done. And even your
Correct.
boss, very close boss, probably won't remember, even if they have known you very well, they probably won't remember all the instances that were there. So
Correct.
sometimes when you have
Correct.
worked on the data dashboard and thought about the instances, you can actually reiterate that with your recommender to the recommender
Correct.
so that it get refreshed in their mind. At the end of the day, they are the one writing it, but you can at least have a
Yeah.
discussion with them, help them understand the
Right.
various aspects. So that's a very good pointer, Kanika, like for all the people who are watching it and are gonna watch this recording later on. So that's a very good
Yeah.
pointer that LOR is also very critical. And one more thing which Kanika said that in your peer-to-peer learning essay, it's not just about the impact that you're having in the classroom. It's also about the time that you spend outside the classroom, the
That's
soft
true.
skills, that those important aspects. So show your strengths. Understand the. Don't just look at the essay prompt as the at the verbatim of the essay prompt. Try to always
Yeah.
understand what is actually being asked by the person who is written that prompt. Like what is that they're looking at in reality? They're actually asking
Correct.
for your strengths. They're actually asking for how do you help others with those strengths of yours to kind of take their career
Mm.
forward.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's what you need to understand really well overall. So great. So I'll go to the interview portion as well now. Like we covered about the application part. So let's talk about the interview, and then I'll actually give a short overview of why one should apply in round three, why one should not apply in round three, and what are the important aspects that ISB looks at. From my own experience, also I'll talk about that. So let's talk about the interview process, Kanika. Like how long did it take for ISB to rule out the interview? How many interviews were there? Who were the interviewers? Let's start with that first.
Yeah. So I sent out my application on 28th of January, and the interview shortlist had come to me on 13th of February. I think that translates to
Okay,
roughly 2 weeks,
2 weeks.
or yes, but in that moment it feels like forever. It's 2 weeks right now that I'm saying, but that time, each night, and you are just aggressively checking your mailbox all the time in every half an hour interval of the day. It's like it reminds me of that analogy, checking the fridge and there's no new food inside. So checking the mailbox, there's no new mail, but you're just checking aggressively because you're waiting for that update. So it had come in 2 weeks, and I was given roughly now again one thing that yes I would give as sort of heads up to anybody who's an ISB applicant. Sometimes you may actually, I would say most times, a lot of time is not given. Should your interview be virtual, you
Hmm.
might get very few days to prepare for the actual interview.
Hmm.
I actually got 5 days.
True.
So 13th I got it and 18th was my interview.
Okay.
I actually know of cases where it was even lesser. Like the number of days in between was even lesser. So just a heads up, please be aware of that the days can be very less. So, should you, if you have even the slightest confidence of getting an interview invite, I would say please start working on the preparation of that,
Even if you're
because
not confident, it's important that you
yeah,
start
if
working on
you're
it, because
confident, yes,
if you like
start
get it by
working.
luck, also you don't have time.
Yeah, and then boy, you don't want that last moment thing that you're freaking out that I was not expecting this. So please just make sure that your interview preparations start happening the moment that application has been uploaded to ISB's portal. So 13th I got it, 18th was my interview. I remember texting Shake very when he was like, "Oh, this is looks like right now." And again, you're going to work also now. The pandemic's over, so physical workspaces are open,
And
and
Kanika
that
works in a Big Four, by the way. So she
yes,
works in a
yes,
Big
I'm
Four, and
going
one of the most difficult Big Fours to work in. Like the work is very, very demanding. So
demanding, right? So now you have just those few hours in the morning and those few hours in the evening to prepare you for the interview. And like I'm saying, you could be the most confident speaker, and you could be very comfortable with interacting with the new people, and but you still, the baggage and weight that comes with that, oh, this is the interview for my dream school, that of course causes a certain nervousness along with it. So you have to steer through that. You have to some just somehow take that in your stride and still deliver the best possible result. So for 5 days, I remember in between 5 days
and just
also
one
we
thing
were able to.
I'll add, Kanika, over here. So
Yeah.
yeah, just one thing, Kanika, I'll add. So there is a bit of a lag, like a little late, but yeah. So basically, for a school like ISB, the interview is a very important part of your application. So there are schools which actually do a more thorough shortlisting in the essay round. So they will shortlist very few people, and then they will
Mhm.
interview them, and then based on their interviews, they will, like, interview plays a small role in the entire selection process. Then there are schools
Okay.
which will shortlist many people and then interview like a decent number. So ISB is a
Right.
school which, like, I'm not saying that they shortlist many people, but they do
Mhm.
a decent job at shortlisting. But the interview plays a very significant role. So just this year,
Okay.
we have seen three students who have been rejected by ISB, who had a 760 on the GMAT, basically, who had degrees from the best engineering institutes in India, who worked in the best of the organizations in terms of, like, the most difficult organizations to get in. And even then, they were rejected primarily because one, like, again, different people had different reasons. One of them were not very clear about their long term, short term career goals as well. Like, again, the goals that they mentioned was there, like the goals were good, but
Mhm.
how do they
Mhm.
chart their journey from here to the long term goal, that
Mhm.
alignment was not 100% in their mind. So again, that's not something they couldn't have prepared on, but they did not probably prepare because they thought, I have a 760, I am from a great school, I am from a great organization, so there's no reason ISB won't take me. So what Kanika is saying is
Yeah.
very, very critical, that you take out time for your preparation for interview. You don't know when it comes, so prepare in advance. That's important.
Yes, and just again reiterating what Piyush has said, every aspect of the application, give it the weight that it deserves, give it the effort that it deserves. The LOR, the essays, the interview preparation, and of course your GMAT score. Don't just, like I'm saying, fixate upon one of the aspects that, hey, one thing is sorted and one thing is in my favor, so I'm going to let the other three slide. It's not going to happen. They will take a very all pervasive approach when they are evaluating your application. So just to get checking one box is not enough. So, like, again, from what I was saying, we between 5 days also we managed to have two mock interviews. And in hindsight, I would say they were so important. They were so important because of the first interview that I had with Shakib. Again, I as per me
So Kanika's
it went fine,
internet is
right?
probably a little.
Sorry.
So Kanika, we lost you for last 10 seconds.
Oh,
So I think you were saying that you had two mock interviews in 5 days. So you prepared for about two mock interviews,
correct,
and then we
correct.
lost you completely. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, so I had two mock interviews in 5 days, and like I'm saying that in hindsight, they were extremely important, right? They added a lot to my approach to handling the real interview when it happens, because that's what you need. You need an approach. You need to be comfortable in a lot of questions that might get asked. See, no mock interview will be able to cover 100% of the questions that might get asked, because that's simply because you're preparing for your mock interview, and your counselor, they have seen your application, they can predict some of the questions that are going to come your way. But again, now when you're in the real interview, there's three people in the real interview, and all three of them again come with their own perspectives, their own backgrounds. So those three might have different questions that they want to know about you, or different facets of your applications that they want you to throw some light on, or current affairs that are happening and those are relevant to your field of work that they want you to hear you speak about. So all that of course can happen. But those mock
Hmm.
interviews, the first one I still remember. After that we had a feedback session, and the feedback that Shakib gave, that really helped me, with seeing where I was going wrong. And if not that I was going blatantly wrong, or where are the things, what are the you know parts of the interview where I can improve. Certain answers,
Hmm.
like Piyush has just mentioned, certain answers they want you to be crystal clear about. They want you to be prepared. And those questions might be asked in 10 different ways. And again, like it's
Hmm.
like peeling an onion. So they're going to go to the deepest layer possible when they ask that question.
Hmm.
When they ask you that long term question, okay, but why do you want to do this? But why do you do so? How has the past been, contributing to this long term goal that you have? How is ISB going to contribute into this long term goal that you have? So you have to be very confident. And just one thing I'll say, that confidence comes from actually believing in the long term goal that you have. And again, this is one appreciation that I have for Shakib, is that I remember that I had seen a lot of essays. In the course of writing your own essay, you ask your peers to share theirs, or the
Hmm.
ones
Hmm.
you can storm some ideas out of. And sometimes I would read an essay and I knew that person, and I would think that this is just not them. I mean, this essay looks like it's just not reeking of them, right? This is not bringing them out. Like, I know that there is so much more to them. And this is looking like it was written out to just check certain boxes. It's not written in a way that actually brings out who they are. Or so that was one apprehension that I had actually while writing my essay, कि प्लीज वो ऐसा ना लगे कि मैं ही नहीं रिफ्लेक्ट हो रही हूँ उसमें. And rest assured that was totally
Hmm.
taken care of. Any long term goal that I told Shakib, even if it was a long term goal that a listener would think and say, but this is nowhere connected to what you're doing right now. It's not like, he
Hmm.
undermined it, or he said, hey, no, this is not going to be taken very well, so don't write it. He said that, no, you should put it out there. If you have certain altruistic ambitions, put them out there. If you think that one day you would want to actually have a business which is in no way related to the work of a CA or the work that you've done till right now, then write it. That is your ambition. So why not bring it out to them? It
Hmm.
is, at the end of the day, the interviewer wants to get to know you. So the more things about yourself, about your aspirations, about your hopes for the future that you bring out, it's just going to make them form a better judgment, or a more clearer judgment as to who you are, one, and as to why particularly you have chosen to pursue an MBA at this point in your life. So a lot of questions in the interview are going to hover around that area, that why ISB, why MBA, what is the immediate goal first, and knowing that distinction is very important, that immediate post MBA goal and the long term goal, where you see yourself in 2 3 years
Hmm.
post your MBA, where you see yourself 10 years post your MBA. Those are two different answers. You have to, of course, prepare and think accordingly. So that is an important question. Now, like, these are questions that, like I'm saying, you need to have crystal clear answers to. Anything related to your work ex, anything. And also an important thing, please be very confident and sure of all the things that you've written in your essays. Because prior to meeting you for the interview, all the
Hmm.
admissions committee and the people who are going to be interviewing you have to know about you is coming from the essay. They're very thorough with the reading of your essays, anything that you have written, any achievement that you have written, any responsibility that you say you were given at work and that you took to shoulder on, they will know about it. So just have,
Hmm.
that clear in your mind, how you want to present that, how you want to tell them how it happened, what you did, and what were your learnings. So be very, articulate in presenting anything that you have written already in your application. And other than that, of course, you can read a lot of interview debriefs. You can, of course, have the mock interviews as well. But please be prepared that the actual interview will be maybe around somewhat similar lines. But the interviewers, like I said, they come with their own backgrounds, they come with their own ideas of how they want to interview you. So there will be questions that are, asked right on the spot, and that maybe you have not prepared for. So for that, I would just suggest that
Hmm.
take that time to think. When they ask you a question, they are not expecting that you're just going to blurt out an answer within 2 3 seconds. It's okay to take a moment to gather your thoughts, to think in your mind what it is that you want to say, in the beginning of the answer, etc., to formulate that answer totally. Do that. Don't come off as, that yes, I'm very eager to answer every question, so I'm just going to quickly. Take the time to think.
So
They
this
will
is
also that.
this is actually when I actually take mock interviews, Kanika, this is one of the most common feedback that I have to give to people. That you
Yeah.
should, it's okay. It's a human thing to take time to think. If you're
Right.
not
Right.
thinking enough or you're not taking
Yeah.
time to think, that's a bad thing actually. That shows you
Yes.
as a person who is impulsive,
Correct,
basically.
correct. Right. And that's the last thing they want, right? I mean, you are here telling that I want to apply for this role, that role. And they'll obviously tell you that, being in that role is gonna require you to be a good listener. So please listen to the question carefully. Again, like, when I had my mock interview, some of the feedback that Shakib gave me was so important, right? That maybe that you need to listen to the questions more carefully, because the answer is sometimes, beating about the bush instead of exactly answering what they're asking. One was
Absolutely.
that. One was, that time your answers. Sometimes when if the interviewer asks you something, it's not a good idea to be rambling on, right? Come straight to the point, as you have done in your essays. Brevity is a trait that they're going to appreciate. So bring out the best in yourself, but that doesn't have to come with essentially talking more or speaking more. And again, one thing I'll say, my interview went on for quite long. I went on for a lot longer than an average interview goes. But I will say that I know of interviews that went on for a much shorter duration. So that is also a myth, I think, that the needs to be busted. The
Duration has to
duration
do
of an
anything.
interview has nothing to do with your chances of selection, or, like I'm saying, each interview will be tailored to how that particular candidate is. If somebody is essentially chatty and they can make their stories, then the interview is bound to last very long. But that's not to take away from someone who's answering to the point and their answers are immaculate and completely articulate. So don't let that think ever.
If the person is able to, like, the interviewer is able to understand your story pretty fast, quickly, like they know your
Right.
background, multiple factors are there. So I think it's a combination of
Correct.
both the interviewer and the interviewee.
Right, right. Yes,
With,
yes. Right. So yes, in this entire interview thing, I would say that having those mock interviews, notwithstanding how confident you are of your application, having the mock interviews really helps. The foremost thing it helps with is just easing a lot of the tension that you will have on the day of the interview. Because in your mind, you will think that, hey, I have done this before, and maybe I know, if not all, but 20 to 30% of the questions that they're going to ask, I know them. So yeah,
True, true,
certainly
true.
that
So
helps.
just one important aspect, I'll just summarize one very important aspect which Sanika talked about, was that ISB focuses a lot on goals, like long-term goals, short-term goals, what you have done in your career and how all of it aligns. So the main thing that they are focusing on is a clarity of thoughts. So you can actually look at 10 different interview debriefs. You can read off like 10 different articles on the internet where so many questions are there for interviews and all. But in reality, what matters most is that are you able to have clarity around how are you going to achieve all of it in a systematic fashion? So that's something which is
Right.
very, very critical in ISB. So in ISB or every interview, so know yourself more important than the research that you're doing on the internet. So know yourself. That is important. Okay. So Kanika, like, is my audio proper now? Like, or is it? Okay, I'm not sure. Just let me switch over to a different Bluetooth. Maybe my Bluetooth is not great. Just a second.
Yeah. Am I audible? Sorry, I had just muted my mic. Yeah. Yes. I cannot hear you. Are you saying anything? And now I think you're muted.
But,
Hmm.
disturbance, yeah, my was actually creating some issue. I
Okay.
guess so.
Okay.
Just switch to a different mic. So I was just saying that there's clarity in the interview process. Clarity about
Hmm.
yourself is very, very critical. You can do 10 different things, but that clarity is the most important part. So I think we have covered a lot around the ISB interview process and all and other applications. So thank you, Kanika, for all the great insights. And these are like really pinpointed insights. And definitely, if you guys have any other questions, you can ask in the chat right now. But I'm gonna just give you a short overview of the discussion that I had with Kanika, where we discussed why she is probably a very suitable candidate for round three, even in ISB, basically.
Thousand.
So, what we need to look at is basically that what does a B school look at in a candidate when they are actually considering you for a seat in their B school? The most important factor, like you can look at 10 different things on the internet. It should be in alignment with their vision, their thought process, this, that, all of that. I'm not saying that is wrong. All of that is true. But the most important single point that they look at is this person employable? Basically, can this person be employed in the kind of roles that come to the campus, and can he become a flag bearer of our B school? Can he become a successful alumni in the long run and bring more success to the other candidates and all of that? So what you need to look at is how employable you are. And when I was discussing with Kanika, the main thing I focused on was what was her profile, what has she done in career, and the kind of profiles that like come to ISB, like the kind of roles that come to ISB, and what are these companies looking at in a candidate. So that kind of understanding should be there. So if you look at ISB, primarily it's a consulting focused school. Like a lot of consulting related roles come in, product management roles come in. Finance and investment banking is still smaller compared to the consulting roles, but still a decent number of people get into them. But consulting roles are the like consulting jobs are the cream jobs in ISV overall. And when a consulting company looks into a candidate's profile, they look at people with experience in analytics, people with experience in big fours, people with experience in big fours because they know that people who have worked in big fours can handle any work pressure that can come their way. So consulting companies love people coming from big fours, or let's say analytics firms like ZS Associates, or some of the other companies like Bu Sigma, any other companies. So what is important for them is to look at, will the person be able to handle the pressure? Has the person worked in premium institute companies and understands the processes and everything around it? They look at your academic background. They look at what is the skill set that you bring to the table. So Kanika had a background in commerce, chartered accountancy, and ISB has 900 seats. So obviously in India, when you have seats to fill, you would end up having 60-70% of them as engineers at the end of the day. And if you
Right.
place an engineer in front of a McKinsey and another 10 engineers in front of a McKinsey with the same background, they do not have a lot to differentiate among each other. But when you look at a chartered accountant working in a big four, coming in that place along with the engineer from another company, McKinsey has to choose. So they will most likely shortlist that chartered accountant at least to interview stage. So
Right.
that was the thought process, that Kanika is someone who is employable in the MBB. Kanika can get an interview call. So ISB Adcom, who is looking at her profile, will understand that as well. So that checkbox is ticked. Now, what else is required? What else is required, obviously, is not just a credential like CA, the Big Four. A 680 on GMAT is difficult with these two, but you will find first two, like CA and Big Four, like there are thousands of candidates in India who have those credentials. Now, Kanika
Right.
went a step forward, got a 680 on GMAT, which was like a pretty decent score compared to the most people who applied. So the third checkbox Kanika ticked. Fourth checkbox was that how clear is she about her long-term goals, and whether her long-term goals are aligned with basically what she has done and what ISB can deliver. So that alignment is something that she can clearly see. And the fifth checkbox that she has to tick is that she's a good communicator. And that is something which you have seen today, by the way, but Anika was able to show to ISB through the interview process as well. So this is a proper
Right.
process that you need to follow. And when you are doing this analysis of round three versus round one, or round one versus round two, what you always have to look at, what is the risk. So when we analyze Kanika's profile, we realize that the main thing which is lacking currently is that, okay, if she can get a 700 on GMAT, like we can probably be 100% sure that, okay, there's nothing wrong. But the idea was that even with a 680, she has a very, very strong chance. I was even to the extent of saying I'm 99% sure that you will basically get a call, interview call.
Right.
So with that slight bit of a difference, the worst case scenario was that even if she doesn't get in round three, next year, just what she has to do is just improve her GMAT score a bit, and she's definitely gonna get in. So there's no harm,
Right.
there's no problem, and she should definitely apply to round three. So what I was trying to say is that look at what a B school is looking in you. What is the B school? Where is the B school position? Okay, so every B school
Right.
has a different alignment, different requirement, and different set of challenges as well. So you need to
Right.
understand where you fit in all of that overall. So that's something which
Right.
is very, very critical. Okay. Okay.
Correct.
And in case you guys want to schedule a discussion with me to kind of understand about your profile, where you fit in and all, you can always do that using this link. But we have one question for the first question towards the end of our session today, Kanika. So the
Right.
person is asking
Yeah.
ISB versus MDI versus SPJAM basically. Which one will be better
Huh.
based on ROI? Kindly suggest. So again,
Okay.
Kanika,
Okay. I'm not very sure of what is
do you
the
want to take this up or
what the fee structure is
are,
of those schools. But what you know what I think what a blanket suggestion I would give to anybody who is in this dilemma, and a lot of people are right because I am actually a rarity. Mostly people are applying to multiple schools, so it will come down to having to choose from one of them. So like Piyush is saying, each school has a certain niche. And even though that may not be how the school advertises itself or talks about itself publicly, that would be the general consensus amongst the applicants, amongst the alumni, amongst the students that are currently there. So find out that about the school, and just now you what you need to dwell on is whether that niche of the school is resonating first of all with you, and whether it will do anything
yes.
for the long term goals that you have set. So right, like all these schools that you mentioned, and wonderful schools, all of them. So it's actually come down to you, okay, what is it that you want to do, and which of these three schools has that niche, has it's is notable for that particular field. So you could actually make your decision accordingly for choosing one.
That's true. That's a very, very valid point because see, ISB is a consulting focused school. They get you great jobs in consulting. MDI, on the other hand, will get you great jobs in marketing and even in finance to a great degree and HR.
Right.
So
Yeah.
SPJMI will get you jobs in IT and operations. So again, everyone has
Correct.
their own niche. So when you say
Niche.
ROI, that's a very broad term. If you're just looking at joining an MBA program and increasing your salary, then each of these B schools will get you there. But if you have
Oh
a
yes.
specific goal in mind, look at that goal,
Huh.
basically.
Correct, correct. Yes, because that's how that's how then recruiters tend to look at you. That's the sort of alumni connections you will make. It will make a trajectory for you, so you can choose based on that
And
certainly.
let's say you want to get into consulting, let's say, or you like, and you go to a school which does not get enough jobs in consulting, then you'll be fighting for 10 jobs out of like 100 students who are fighting for the same. So you should have
Correct.
clarity about what do you want to achieve in life. So that's important
Yes,
thing. That's important.
yes, yes. Certainly,
Okay.
certainly. Yes. Yeah.
So any closing comments from you, Kanika? Any closing tips? Like we had a great discussion,
Yeah.
but just to close the discussion,
Just the
any closing
closing comment that I would like to make is, just the very reason that we had this discussion is that whenever you are contemplating your chances for a particular round, I remember I really thank Piyush that, if I had not spoken to you, I would have never applied. I would have given into the fears that were being fed into me that no, round three is very competitive. Don't do it in round one, etc. So yes, evaluate yourself objectively. That's what Piyush did with me. I kept on saying this to him that no, Piyush, there can be someone with my exact same profile and a better GMAT score. And he just said, so what? That's not how they, make their decisions. You have to evaluate yourself objectively. And if you feel like, there is substance in your application as of right now, and your achievements, and you're confident about what you bring to the table, do go ahead and apply, right? Whether it's round three or whether it's round one. So yes, just be confident of your traits and how you have made your application, and then speak to the consultant. And then another great feedback that Piyush gave me was, when I was thanking him very emphatically about, oh, thank God you told me to, he said, no, it's also attributable to you that you listen. So that is one closing suggestion, that listen. Whoever is the consultant or the professional that you're working with, their advice when it comes to you, even though it might, they speak to you like they're your peer and it comes very informally, they're actually speaking from years of experience and looking at hundreds of applications and hundreds of these scenarios that X person applied with this score to Y school, what happened. So, their mind has that algorithm literally fitted. So the answer that they give you or the thing that they ask you to do, trust that professional and go ahead with it. So that's one suggestion that I'd give. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kanika, for the great inputs. It was really great to have you and here, and I'm very, very happy that what we planned, we were able to achieve it. So your college starts in a month, and I know we had this
Yeah.
discussion over the call as well. So take your
Yeah.
time to kind of get ready for that new phase in your life and your
Yes.
career. And I wish you all the very best for that. Thank you so much for being
Yes.
here today.
Okay. Thank you, Piyush. Thank you. It was lovely speaking to you, and I hope that we have really achieved. That no, I always feel this thing that I have always been in that place where that quotation, right? Aspire today, inspire tomorrow. So anybody who has gotten to that B school, that dream B school that you are thinking of, they have been exactly where you are. So ask those questions, watch those interviews, read those interview debriefs. They are going to help you. So I hope that we achieve what we intended to. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Piyush. Thank you.